My last two releases have been about these two guitars I've been making, an acoustic baritone and a semi-acoustic electric nylon string guitar. In this video I'm going to wrap up both of them because even though they're very different guitars, I've been making them alongside each other, and you know, a lot of the steps are the same. Let's check it out. Let's start with the nylon string guitar. This was a scaled up version of a smaller instrument I made that I created new molds and shapes and stuff for and figured all out in the first video. So now as we start the second video, I am doing the completion of putting this instrument together. In the first one we made the neck and the body, and we even started getting into the paint. And this is you know, continuing to design this sort of top loading nylon string bridge. This will work for ball end strings as well as tied on strings, and I like it. You know, it's working pretty good. And here's the neck. I got the fingerboard that we made in the first video all glued on, getting that all ready to go here. There's always a little bit of final shaping. Even though I cut these things on the CNC, I always leave a little bit of extra wood around the edge so I can do this final cut in by hand, and then of course finish it. And in this case I finished with Rubio monocoat on both these instruments that I made. Just go with like a natural finish. Now there's no truss rod in a nylon string guitar, and so I was a little bit nervous about doing this fretwork, and I gave it a little bit of extra attention. And as I've had the guitar playing for a little while now, I think I need to go in and do a little bit more fretwork on the top end of it. There's a couple spots that I feel like aren't quite clearing, but it actually worked out really well. I like these low tension guitars. They're kind of interesting. Of course you have to measure 6 million times to locate your bridge to be on the safe side. I'm using lasers and strings and my center square and all these tools. You know, this is fast forwarded, it still takes that long. Because I sprayed the back and sides of this guitar, I had the whole top taped off, and so I just left it taped off to do this part, and then once it was glued on, I peeled the tape off and applied finish. Although lately I have been finishing the top first and then gluing the bridge on and just sanding away the finish where the bridge is going in a similar fashion, but on this one I didn't do it because I just didn't want to untape it and retape it again and waste all that paper. I had to buy a piezo electronic system for this guitar that would fit into this thin 2-inch body, so my choices were a little bit limited without getting into very, very expensive units, but I found this one that looked pretty good. However, I did not like that it had this 1/4-inch jack that was like a flush mount, and instead I soldered on an end pin jack to make this guitar look a little cleaner. And then wiring is done, which is real nice, you know, coming from being usually having to make my own pickups and wind them and then do all the electronics. So now I'm starting to rough in my bridge, and I'm using my Square X. This is actually a Square X prototype. The ones that are for sale at squaretools.com are much nicer and classier than this, but I can use that to get a basic idea of my fret height, and then that kind of tells me how high I want to make my bridge. And you can see if I work in inches, that's on one side, and it was centimeters on the other side, which is one of the kind of features of that special little ruler. And I just sell those rulers individually too over at squaretools.com. And so that gave me like a basic place to start with my bridge. I just used some scrap ebony, and you can see that's about a good place to start to string this thing up. And of course these are bolt-on necks with angle adjustments, so I can make some adjustments later. What I don't want to do is make it too low because I always start at the bottom. But if I make it too high, I can bring it down, of course, or I can actually just adjust the cant of the guitar neck a little bit, and that'll usually solve it. But let's we're just about done here, so let's jump over now and finish up that baritone guitar. The big takeaway from part 1, if you remember, was I totally messed up my position markers and shifted them all off by a fret on the upper half of the neck. That was like a pretty big screw up. But other than that, the instrument is just my classic Z design modified to hold a baritone neck. And so, you know, I was setting it up to put the bridge on when I noticed this mistake, and now I need to, of course, still align the bridge, but then I also have to find a way to fix this mistake. Even though I'm just making this guitar for me, I know that while I'm playing, having those wrong marks is going to mess me up. So I needed to do something to remind myself when I'm playing in the upper register that I have to be careful. And what I decided to do was just simply drill holes and put new markers in on the guitar. And at first I was going to just do the upper register, but then I thought, well, why don't I do it all the way down the neck so it's consistent, and everywhere I look, and I'll just sort of teach myself to look for these dots. And of course this is the wrong way to do it. And what you're about to see is going to hurt me a lot more than it's going to hurt you. So just keep that in mind. With all the frets in the way and the fingerboard already radius, that makes doing this kind of work a little bit tricky. Obviously you would do this all first, but I didn't have a choice because I screwed up. And the whole time I was reminding myself that, well, this guitar is just for me. It doesn't have to be perfect. And so, you know, I used some little
circles of skateboard wood to match some of the other skateboard accents that I've already put on this guitar, and just simply drilled a hole, little super glue, made them flush, and just created these new markers. Now, my eye is still going to be drawn to those big, beautiful blue lines that are in there, but at least I've got a reference now of what is correct to help me keep my brain straight when I'm up there. Of course, if I were building this guitar for sale or for a client, I would have to make a new neck for it, or at the very least, take this neck off, pull the frets out, cut the fingerboard off, put a new fingerboard on, and refret that. But, you know, this is for me, and it gets added to the story, I guess. A little postscript note on all the frets that I did this work. Of course, I took some finish off, and I did put a little bit of like an oil on top, but I didn't refinish it with the natural varnish that I used on the whole fingerboard. And so now I've been playing this guitar quite a bit, and it's already starting to kind of show some wear and some dirt and discoloration happening in those frets. But I kind of don't mind. You know, like I said, it's just for me. Of course, when I play, it's in the shop when my hands are dirty, so that's not helping. So now I'm going to locate and set my bridge that I made. I really like the skateboard top on it. I thought that came out real cool. And this guitar I did finish already with the Rubio mono coat. And so now, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I have to, you know, remove the tape where the bridge is going to go and then clear that finish off to make sure I can get some good glue adhesion. And of course, on this style guitar, I have a bolt-on setup for the bridge. I use these sort of recessed set screws to help me align it and to help hold it down and keep it from pulling up and putting a lot of extra pressure on the glue. And so between the glue and those bolts, I really feel like these bridges are rock solid, unlike so many acoustic guitars where the bridges just pull up over the years. And plus, I'm working with these reclaimed closet doors, so, you know, the tops are made of plywood. There's also the chance of a ply getting removed from the other ply and just pulling up, and this prevents that from happening as well. And of course, I have my bolt-on neck design with my angle adjustment screw in there, so that always goes together nice and easy. And this guitar needed some electronics too. I've been using these Fishman units that I can get on eBay that are not that expensive, and they sound really good. But of course, I like to also add magnetic pickups. I end up having to do a little bit of hacking to to my electronic system. I basically run two separate electronic systems, a passive magnetic system as well as this active piezo system. So I wound a custom magnetic pickup for this using some skateboard top, and I made it like a surface mount that I could move around and decide where I wanted it to go later. Because I wanted to sort of like find the sweet spot. And so then that is coupled with the active piezoelectronic system. There's a switch, so you can switch between one or the other, or put the switch in the middle and use both. And I really think having that magnet on there helps warm the sound up a little bit. Of course, I wax potted it, but what I need to do is get a bigger wax pot, because a lot of times when I make these pickups, they don't fit in all at once, so I have to sort of do this extra step, which is a little annoying. I also had a little trouble getting that string pin to hold the low B baritone string down, and I ended up having to put one different pin that was a little bit beefier in there for that low B string. I found the best spot for the magnetic pickup and screwed it down there, and then I added the pickguard that I made from the skateboard as well. And I think that looks really cool. I really like these all these colors. It's very different for my work.
Normally this would be the part of the video where I do the big reveal, where I would sit down on a stool in my shop and just play the guitar in the open air into a condenser microphone so you could hear it and see that it works. But I decided to do something a little bit different this time. I thought I'd actually bring them home to my studio and zhuzh them up a little bit and try to record something a little bit better for you. And I did that on both of these guitars, and you can see both of those videos next week. Be good.